Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Faryal Razzaq, and today we are here with our session, Listen to the Expert. We are very lucky that Omar Khalid Bhatti, Dr. Saab, who is an associate professor at Istanbul Medipol University, Turkey, and he is not only a pride for the nation that he is serving Turkey for, and he is part of the think tank in Turkey as well, and he has been doing a lot of researches. He has about 26 research papers and authored 2 books, and 2 more are in the way. And he is an expert in organization behavior and strategy, and he has a very phenomenal work in Islamic management as well. So without much ado, we would like to hear from Dr. Saab. We are very honored that you have given us this time all the way from the Turkey, and I understand that it was a long day for you as well, and still you're here with us. Welcome to the show, sir, and we're very pleased to have you in the show. We would like to know your accomplishments because you had been a government consultant for CPEC as well, so we would really like to hear from you. So please tell us about yourself, your journey, how you ended up in the Turkey, and all the big things that you're doing there.
And thank you very much. I think you have really put me into a position where I feel as if I have accomplished too much, but in reality, no. I'm still at a very learning stage, at a very early stage of my learning. As you rightly mentioned, I have a PhD in business from IIU Malaysia, and I specialize in organizational behavior. My first degree is in computer sciences. I have an MBA in finance. Luckily, I had the experience of working in the industry for near about 9.5 years, and that too in the Middle Eastern market. Since, as you rightly pointed out, my main area is organizational behavior, but in parallel, I'm also trying to focus on strategic management. And my main forte has always been Islamic management, which is a very upcoming field. And on the other hand, there's a lot that needs to be done, especially in terms of taking that field further. But having said that, there are a lot of common grounds between the conventional and the Islamic management field together. So there's a lot of correlation between both these fields. I don't want to talk much about what I have accomplished or whatnot, but yes, I'm trying my level best to be an active researcher, because as a part of the academic fraternity, you really have to be a little bit more updated with research, and you really need to put a little bit of extra effort to continue in terms of producing research that can really contribute to the society and can add value to the existing body of literature. So I'm trying my best as much as I can in bits and pieces. Thanks to you also, that you have also been very kind. I mean, you have been helping us and supporting us in different research projects. So I have been in Turkey for last 2.5 years. I'm working with Istanbul Medipol University as an associate professor. And during these 2 years, I had the opportunity of working very closely in some of the areas, and one of that area is narcissism, which eventually we will be discussing in next few minutes. But apart from that, you're very right. I was very lucky and blessed that I had the opportunity of working on China-Pakistan Economic Corridor. I managed 4 projects, which eventually were executed, and they were finished in 2018 December, yes, if I'm not mistaken. So ma'am, that's it. 2 books, as you mentioned, I have co-authored. 1 book is on the way, so please wish us luck. I mean, we're not making any profit out of those books. The whole purpose of writing those books is that at least people can learn more or less about the subject in which we are trying to push things forward. And on the other hand, it's more like a charitable work that at least later, if anyone needs help, they can go back and refer that. So that's the aim. And the upcoming book that I'm working with one of my colleagues is Road to Happiness, and that too from an Islamic perspective. So I'm very hopeful that that's going to be a very interesting topic altogether, and it would really open a lot of other avenues for future researchers to work on. So I think I'll cut it short now. So that's more or less what I've done. I'm sorry, I took 3 minutes extra.
No, no, it's okay. And I would really like to have another session with you for this road to happiness as well. So if narcissism is another extreme, then your humbleness is another extreme. I mean, you have accomplished a lot and you have been very, down to earth and very humble about it. So, sir, let's come to the topic. What is actually narcissism? And since you have a lot of, experience and research in Islamic management, we would like to discuss it from Islamic management perspective as well, about the colleagues. So, what is narcissism?
Ma'am very rightly pointed out. I frankly got involved in this area of narcissism almost like 3 years back when I started reading about it, because my main focus was on workplace deviance, and from moving from workplace deviance a little bit more further, I mean, I could see that some of the employees, or on the other hand, some of the data that I was getting based on my research, I could see that directly, indirectly, there was one particular personality disorder that was being highlighted by most of the people in discussions, either in interviews or even in the questionnaires that we were trying to get our data through. So I started searching about this, like what exactly is narcissism, and I must say that basically made me move into this area a little bit more. So coming back to your point that narcissism, before we start, I mean narcissism, or you could say that Narcissus was a figure in Greek mythology, and he was known for being very self-obsessed. Self-obsessed for the fact because, of course, he was a handsome young man, so he was very self-obsessed with his beauty. So his vanity, in fact, caused him, to grow distasteful of other people. So the Greek gods at that time, I mean, that's what the mythology says, they took notice of it and they punished this Narcissus by causing him to fall in love with his own reflection in the water. So he was unable to leave his own image. So Narcissus, withered away and died. So this is how the history goes when we talk about narcissism.
Interesting.
Yes. So when we look at the today's world, I mean, I must say over here that even though we live well beyond the ancient times, and the concept of narcissism it is still alive and it is stronger than ever. I mean, according to numerous psychology organizations, for instance, you must be very well aware of the fact that there's one very famous association of psychological science. I mean, even they are claiming that narcissism is on a major rise. And this is especially true for younger generations. But frankly speaking, based on the fact that when we are doing research, I have actually found in some of my studies that it's not only younger college students, it's basically going on, a little bit more at the higher end. Of course, not likely as when we look at people of 60 years old. I mean, of course, their narcissistic traits are comparatively less. So, as I was saying, narcissistic personality disorder is the actual term that we use for those people who have narcissism, and it is one of the several types of personality disorder. Let me clarify you and the audience over here that please understand that when we talk about narcissistic personality disorder, it is a mental condition. It is a mental condition in which people have an inflated sense of their own importance.
Yes.
It's a deep need of excessive attention. I mean, this is something that we really have to clarify, that it's a need for excessive attention and admiration. You would see troubled relationships and a lack of empathy, a lack of empathy for others. But behind this mask of extreme confidence and lies, that you see, there lies a very fragile self-esteem that is very vulnerable to the slightest criticism that you can give them or they can take. So if I make it very simple and a little bit more clear for the audience, it is a personality disorder that causes problems in many areas of life, such as relationships, work, school, financial affairs, and so forth. So people with narcissistic personality disorder may generally, they generally are unhappy, they are disappointed, and they're not given the special favors of admiration that they believe that they deserve. So this is one of the very clear-cut traits that you would find in them based on the evidence, the empirical evidence that we have. And importantly, they may find their relationships very unfulfilling, and others may not enjoy being around them. All right. And there are other related factors that also contribute. Just to clarify again, some of the very key important symptoms with regards to this personality disorder is that people with this disorder can either have a very exaggerated self-importance, and I think if you look around, you might find someone, I mean, I don't want to name anyone, but you might find someone who might have this particular disorder. You would see people, I mean, the other symptom that is very common is that they have a sense of entitlement, and they require constant, excessive admiration. Like, I mean, you could understand. Right? Yes. So similarly, they expect to be recognized as, superior, even without any achievement. I mean, they warrant it. So this is again the part of the disorder, that personality disorder that we're talking about, narcissism. So similarly, they exaggerate achievements and talents. They are very preoccupied, and I mean, you would see them being occupied with fantasies about success, power, brilliance, beauty, or even, with regards to beauty or the perfect mate, like, the perfect soulmate even. And they believe they are superior, and they can only associate with special people who they believe are, in power with them. Yes. Plus, you would also see, based on the literature and the research that we have done, that one of the symptoms, which is again very significant, is that they would monopolize conversations. They would monopolize conversations and blight or look down on people, especially
in personal relationship.
Yes, and especially they will look down on people whom they perceive as, they are inferior to me, or to us. So that's how it is. Plus, apart from this, they expect special favors and unquestioning compliance with their expectations. And I'm assuring you, based on what I have read so far, as I said, I'm still a humble student of this subject. It's a very vast field. I mean, what I've come across based on the literature is that these people with these symptoms, they take advantage of others to get what they want, and they can go to any extreme at times. So they have an ability or unwillingness to recognize the needs and feelings of others. So generally what research argues is that one of the symptoms is that they behave in an arrogant and haughty manner, all right, coming across as conceited, boastful, and very, very, like high-nosed type of people. So what they do is that they insist on having the best of everything. For instance, the best car, the best coffee, the best office, the best title. So this is there. And at the same time, people with narcissistic personality disorder have trouble handling anything they perceive as criticism, and they can become impatient or angry when they do not receive a special treatment. They have significant interpersonal problems, and they are very easily, you can very easily cite them, that, okay, this is there. They react with rage or contempt, and they try to, as I said earlier, they try to belittle the other person to make themselves, look superior, that I know you're wrong. Right? They have difficulty even regulating their emotions and behavior. They experience major problems dealing with stress and adapting to change. They feel depressed. They're extremely moody. Not extremely, but at least you can say they are moody, because they fall short of perfection. Right? And they have secret feelings of insecurity, shame, vulnerability, and humiliation. So this is basically what generally we see as the symptoms. And I think if we look at the literature on psychology and even medical science, you can see this being discussed very openly. So experts, I must say that experts They are extremely worried about the outcomes of this increase in narcissism, which we are seeing and focusing these days. Because narcissists, as I said earlier, and I'll just repeat quickly, that they tend to bring plenty of negative experience to themselves and the people around them. So narcissists have a very high sense of self-importance. I'm focusing on this particular terminology a little extra because you have to understand that this is something which is a very key feature of this particular problem.
So, Dr. Saab, would you like
Yes,
to tell us that you have been in Turkey, you have, served in Pakistan as well. So, why this narcissism is on the rise? I mean, what are is it environment, genetics, or,
yes.
neurobiology? What makes a person narcissistic? I mean, how it, starts?
Ma'am, that's a very excellent question. And honestly, this is exactly what we are also trying to do research on, because it's an ongoing process. I mean, it's just, as I said, it's still an emerging phenomena. It hasn't stopped yet, although it has been there for millions of years, but still. See, currently, let me break it up into a little. At the moment, this is a very key question that most people in the society, they usually look at these traits that what are considered as negative. You also have addressed it, I've also addressed it, and we've agreed that they're negative. All right. And then again, going to your question, so what could possibly create a rise of this personality type? I mean, I'm going to talk more about the current situation, that what exactly is happening. May it be Turkey, may it be Malaysia, may it be Middle East, Pakistan, etc. See, we're living in an age of Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok, and whatnot. Social media is there. So when we have a quick, I mean, many have been quick, especially in terms of research, to point out that the use of social media has coincided with this spike in narcissism. And they believe that technology and social media allows you, all right, to focus more on yourself, all right, moving society from the overall, fundamentals of collectivism towards an attitude of individualism, like me, all right, only me. So it is very hard to argue with, but we still have some evidence coming in. So since the entire point of social media account, if we see in general, and specifically if we focus on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, it is basically for us to express our own thoughts. So a social media account can actually drive the need to stand out and be special in an e-crowd. I mean, when I talk about e-crowd, it's the electronic crowd that we have. So the internet has essentially provided tools, frankly, and this is not, I'm saying it on my own, but based on the evidence that we have and somewhat research that I have also been a part of, that the internet has essentially provided tools that encourage narcissistic behavior. And because young people use social media the most right now, young people are consequently more, exposed, or they're becoming more, prone to this particular problem. The other thing is, ma'am, which we see as one of the other factors that is contributing this narcissism in our societies is the self-esteem movement. Many blame that self-esteem culture, a movement that looks to promote the self-esteem of younger people, is also to be blamed. So obviously supporting
style. The parenting
exactly.
style.
Very true, ma'am. So obviously, like when you're supporting young people to feel a sense of confidence as they move through life, all right. So, I mean, as they move through life is never a bad thing. I mean, you allow them to, but if out of balance, the entire equation is out of balance, it can perhaps have negative side effects. And we're seeing those negative side effects even in the developed world and even in developing countries like ours. So the self-esteem movement, I would just like to add, is that when we talk about the self-esteem movement, it often involves praising people regardless of their actual achievements. And it's a very common practice that is being observed in our societies. I mean, we think of participation trophies handed out to those who come last in the competition, but we're doing it And the argument goes that these false rewards have actually backfired, giving people a false sense of achievement that yes, I'm like, I'm at this stage, I'm I'm here. And what is happening is that as a result, we have given a generation of younger people who think too high of themselves. And and this all is basically facilitating narcissistic characteristics that we are now observing in our young, middle age. I mean, when I talk about middle age, I'm talking about like from 25 to even 47. I mean, this is what we are seeing. Apart from this, ma'am, our culture rewards the narcissists. I mean, some people are speculating on whether certain aspects of our culture as a whole encourage narcissism or no. I mean, I don't want to go into any controversy, but look at the culture in which we are, and think logically,
Absolutely.
independently. I mean, don't be biased and see. Is the culture not rewarding narcissism or not? Is it not encouraging narcissism? I mean, I just shared with you some of the key elements of those symptoms. I shared with you some of the points with regards to self-esteem and Twitter and etc. So just think, in what type of a culture are we living? I mean, we look no further than the belief that anyone can achieve success through hard work and determination. Now, Western culture, if we talk about, is infatuated with success. And you can see the same thing being transmitted and brought in. So my argument is not only the natural culture more with success, despite narcissists typically have some positive traits that can be not.
I think there is a lag from your side a little bit. I think
Sorry,
your
if you can hear
internet
me.
connection has a lag. Now I can hear you. Before that, it was a slight lag there. And you're
Sorry,
absolutely right about the
my
culture.
apologies.
No, it's okay. I mean, it's internet, technology, you can do anything about it. So you were very right that flattery is like, if you come to the work setting, flattery is one part that you have to do to survive a job in your, office, that you have to inflate the ego of the superiors. So you were right about this culture, which permeates to our work life as well.
Very right, ma'am. And unfortunately, you could say like apple polishing, palm rubbing, or on the other hand, shoulder rubbing. These eventually are encouraging people who have that symptoms, and eventually they are becoming more and more, prone to this particular problem. And it is a mental disorder. I mean, it is a disorder. You have to, So, yes, please go ahead, ma'am. Sorry, my mind's.
Because it's now we are towards the end of the show. I mean, it was a wonderful talk, and I wish that we had more time. And definitely we'll have another session about the happiness book also, because now we have to understand that this narcissism is a worldwide phenomenon. It has been on the rise. So, what are the steps that we can take to control this narcissism, this epidemic of narcissism that is permeating? And let me just clarify my audience that we call a disorder when your day-to-day life is affected by it, when the life of the people around you are affected by it. So this is when we call. So if you are being narcissistic and around a narcissistic person, and your daily life is impacted, then we call it. So sir, towards the end, please let's find some solution that how can we control this epidemic of narcissism that we are seeing, and may it be awareness, and I would like your suggestions on that, please.
Ma'am, I think my suggestions are going to be a bit hard, and please, no offense to anybody, but these suggestions are purely based on research results. Let me be very clear again that because the cause of narcissistic personality disorder is still unknown, I'll be very honest to you on that, because we're still in that stage where we're trying to understand. So there is no known way to prevent the condition. However, it may help to get treatment as soon as possible from early childhood to even at a later stage of your life. the thing is that those who really love you, or you have to find ways of explaining people as issues that you need to address. There is no shame. There are ways through which we can go. Plus, we have to participate in family therapy. It is very, very important. Why? Because based on the overall participation of family therapy, it would actually help us learn healthy ways to communicate or to cope up with conflicts or emotional distress, because these things are also creating a lot of narcissism in our societies. Plus, we have to attend.
That's a very good question.
Yes.
That's a very good suggestion, because in Pakistan we don't go for family therapy ever. I mean, if somebody there's a very taboo going and seeking help in the first place, and for this kind of disorder, unless you are mentally broken, nobody, even very few people goes to the therapist and professional. So this is a very important point.
Totally agree with you. And see, there is one needs to understand that these type of people are very vulnerable, because in the end they have no empathy. So of course, if you're going to show empathy, they might take it negatively. So it's a very slow and steady process. But within this process, you have to bear patience and you have to show support, because in the end, if you have some loved one who's basically going through this, so you need to change your way of dealing with them in a way that at least you can get things sorted out. So family therapy in our collectivist culture can actually be one of the solutions that we can go. I mean, as I said, it's still an evolving field. We're still at a learning stage where we are trying to find the appropriate answers and appropriate methods based on our cultural settings. So there is no harm in seeking guidance. And this is what Islam also tells us. Please try to understand that the beauty of Islam is that as a religion, it's a complete code of life. And within this code of life, if you can understand the very basics by looking at the guidance given by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, a lot of problems and a lot of social issues can be catered and dealt. So I would just like to say that, again, it's a problem. It's there. It's not something that cannot be cured. It can be cured, but it needs to be done collectively. And we have to identify it as well. Please do not keep quiet. By keeping quiet, you're promoting that problem further.
So that's a very important suggestion. And how about the work setting? I mean, should we have some trainings for work setting, that where we make them understand that how wrong this narcissistic person, because emotions are contagious as well. So if you have a negativity in the group, it is going to transcend into the whole team. So
Yes.
What would you suggest for the work setting?
Yes, ma'am. I think this is exactly what most of the research is heading to. At least in last 5-6 years, you would see that a lot is going on. There are continuous training programs that have been embedded in the overall HR modules. And those training modules are eventually helping people to overcome this disorder. Of course, you're not pointing fingers, but then again, the thing is that most of the organizations, what they do is that, people do identify, they do highlight, and it is kept as a private secret. All right, it's not disclosed. But based on that, at least once you have identified, you start giving them trainings. Since the discussion is such that we cannot further proceed, but there are different training modules that are already available. There are psychological based training sessions which are being conducted within organizations, even within schools, I must say. I mean, I know a few schools even in here in Turkey where they have hired psychologists, and they are trying to analyze kids and make sure that they develop that environment and culture where they do not get into self-obsession. So there are methods, there are ways that can be applied, and hopefully, I think in future sessions, once you will have further guests available, I think we can actually discuss more on the solution part next time, hopefully.
Definitely, we need to have another session on that. And the selfie culture. I mean, the APA has termed it a disorder, the selfie,
Yes.
because people are so obsessed. This is part of this narcissistic
Yeah.
culture as well, actually. You're obsessed with the selfies, and wherever you go and you just take the pictures, and you're so this is a very important fact. And thank you, Dr. for giving us your valuable time, and it was a wonderful discussion. I learned a lot, and this is the debate that needs to go further. The first step towards healing is to understand that there is a problem. Unless you don't understand there is a problem and something needs to be fixed, how can it can be fixed? So these are the what we are doing to do from the FEEL platform, to make people realize that seek help whenever it is essential, before you go into any disorder or a serious issue. So you need to seek help before, and in the end, the lack of empathy is the reason for disorder. So again, in the end, thank you, Dr. Saab, and thank you, Wiz. And I would always say that in the world where I quote Dr. Seuss again and again, that in a world where you could be anything, be kind, be empathetic, be peaceful, and be, tolerant of other people, and in the society. And I must say that even our certain faction and sectarianism is based on narcissism, that we are superior to the others. So it may be a collective, we are talking about individual narcissism, but I think narcissism do exist in a collective form as well. So we need to identify that. And any last thing that you would, any last message that you would like to give before we log off?
Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me and bringing me on your show. Secondly, as I rightly pointed out, we sort this problem together. It's not something that we cannot do. It can easily be done. But I think that we have a mind to take constructively rather than negative about it.
So thank you so much, and take care, and be kind, and be respectful. Allah Hafiz. Have a very nice weekend.